I only really have one more question, and then I was trying to think of what else
Okay.
to
All
come
right.
up
So
with.
we are.
But we'll probably just go with the flow.
Yeah. All right. Greetings, brothers and sisters. This is Professor Spear here with Tony Boliby, and we are trying something a little different this time. We are on the Google Hangouts Go Live or whatever it's called, live, go live, and I think we are actually broadcasting live right now. I'm not sure where we are broadcasting live, but I think it's I'm taking a moment now to see if I can find it and to see if there's a way for me to actually share the okay, I think I've found it. But if I can share this, and let's see, please. Yeah, and so there's a bit of a lag, but yeah, this will be interesting. We'll see if this works. I'm gonna share, go to Facebook, and yeah, so Tony, why don't you could actually go ahead and ask me your question now while I'm fiddling with Facebook and just kind of yeah hit me
Yeah.
with that question.
Yeah, cool, man. So I've been talking with some people. Some people have been messaging me here and there, really over the years, and I see people, struggling to. I guess people are trying to heal themselves of various things, and uh, they are on the fruit diet usually when they contact me. And sometimes I have to tell them, take a step back to the cooked mucusless veggies. Um, and it's just been really interesting because I've seen these folks actually get pretty amazing results by going back to the cooked veggies and then going back to the fruit. And I wondered if you could give me like some insight on that whole process of where somebody's struggling on the fruit and then you go back to cooked food, uh, especially a cooked mucusless food, and then go back up to the fruit. Um, and some of the things that I've seen is people go back to the cooked mucusless food and they enjoy it for a minute, but they don't feel great, so they usually come back and message me, hey, the food is kind of, the veggies are getting a little heavy or, such like that. And then, in some cases I've said, hey, well, go back and do a fruit fast. And that the fruit fast after that is so different and they just feel better. And, uh, and it's just interesting how these cooked veggie periods can really kind of boost. It's like a jump start, and uh, it almost like resets the system, and so that the next fruit fast is real powerful.
Right. So the question is just going
Like,
through that
like,
experience.
yeah, like what's the dynamics of that? How come somebody can struggle to be on a fruit fast for a number of days or weeks and go back to the cooked veggies, and then when they go back to the fruit, it's like a whole nother thing.
Yeah, I mean, basically what's going on is okay, number one, a lot of these people have never really experienced gradual transition in the way that you would with, say, Arnold Ehret's methodologies. And so what they have done is they've kind of deprived themselves of experiencing going from point A to point B over a gradual period of time. So they go from point A to point Z, and now they're on fruit, and you can do that for a while because essentially it's almost like you're being a lot of folks are being stimulated by their old waste, and so they're kind of stimulated and they're going and they're doing the fruit, and you're going to feel better than you'd ever felt in your life until you get some kind of crazy elimination or some weakness comes out. And that's where a slower transition uh, methodology makes more sense. At
Hmm.
the same time, what a lot of people are very short-sighted, and I think it's because they haven't experienced the transition or any kind of gradual change. They're kind of short-sighted about eating something and trying to obsess over how they feel in that very moment. And that's kind of a wrong way to go, in my opinion. You have to, you do have to evaluate what makes you feel good, what doesn't make you feel good, but you can't necessarily obsess over it after every morsel you've eaten or after every meal. It has to be something that you look at over the span of time, over the span of weeks, over the span of months. If you just go and do nothing but all fruit and you've never transitioned to that, you don't know the experience of the in between stages. So you just don't know that. You just don't have that experience under your belt. You don't have no clue what that means to eat some of these things that are, we would consider, the transitional things. And so people end up doing this yo-yo back and forth between crazy eating, what we would consider some crazy eating or something. I mean, because that crazy eating is when you lose control. So when people are trying to stay raw, they sometimes they feel like they have maintained a level of control because they stayed raw. But that's, for my opinion, that's the wrong metric by which to judge what you're going through. Because it's not about the raw, it's about the mucuslessness. Are you eating mucus forming foods? Because to me, I'm not impressed, and your body is not going to be impressed when you do a month on fruit and then you lose control and go binge on 6 or 7 avocados a day for several days. That is not, that's not a detox type of approach. That is a binge approach that is the result of not really transitioning properly. And people say, well,
Hmm.
maybe it wasn't, I wasn't getting enough things, or I really needed it, if I, I craved it and all that kind of stuff. Again, gradual transition will change that entire paradigm of, okay, I'm going to eat, just go stuff myself with this and that kind of stuff. There's actually a system in place, and like we said in the previous video, don't sweat the small stuff. Yeah, if you ate nothing but fruit for a couple months and you're fat, and that's basically a fasting level for most people. When you take a step back into even a raw salad, like I told you before, there to me there is nothing, there is no gap wider than fruit and vegetables in terms of experience, because you can do a fruit juice fast and then start eating fat-free fruit, and that gap is fairly, some people obsess over that, and it's like, well, if you go from fruit juice, then you're eating fruit, you're not really fasting anymore, you're not really doing cleansing as much or whatever. But to me, in my experience, yes, it's more aggressive and it's on a higher level when you get into the fruit juice. But fruit is not that far away from fruit juice, depending on what fruits you choose. When you eat a watermelon, you're not that far away from just having juice that watermelon. I mean, there's not a lot of metabolic, waste or fiber or anything in that. It's mostly going to be juice with just a little bit of fiber that comes through. But when you go from fruit eating and then you eat a salad, I mean, that's like it is very much a shock to the system, because your body was sort of getting used to the fruit level and reminded how much it enjoyed that in your bloodline from generations ago, and you hit it with some vegetables, and it's like, oh. So again, I talk about and promote transitioning in and out of fasting, especially long-term fasting, which I don't recommend for people that haven't mastered short-term fasting. If you haven't mastered the 2 to 3 day fast, every couple weeks or every week or whatever. If you haven't mastered like 2 to 3 days, then the 2 and 3 month fruit fast, it's not that you can't physically do it. It's what happens afterward. What'd you do before it, and will you be able to control yourself afterward to be mucus free, or to be able to at least control the process? Because too many people lose control of the process. It's one thing. That's why I always say the most important thing is looking at how well do you break a fast, because I'm not impressed with long fastings. I've done it. I've seen other people do it. That's not what impresses me. What impresses me is if I were to do 2 months on fruit, I would maybe spend a week eating fruit and then start throwing in some green drinks. And that's going to be my transition toward a salad. Because if I just went fruit and then all of a sudden I had that salad and I hadn't had a salad for a couple months, that's going to be too much of a shock to my system. And yes, I'm not going to feel great. That salad's not going to make me feel good. Uh, and then and then the question that was on the table was with the if you're totally raw and you're doing the salads and fruit, and then maybe you got some avocados or nuts or something, but as soon as you eat a cooked something cooked, that you just totally feel horrible. Some of that is depending on what it is you ate that was cooked and how much of it you ate. If you eat a transitional kind of thing like a steamed summer squash or spaghetti squash, or zucchini is probably the most refined. But if you eat something like that and you don't eat a lot of it, and the majority of what you're eating is the same raw salad that you were accustomed to, and you get rid of the avocados out of that, you really shouldn't feel that much of a difference. There's not that far of a gap. There's between, in my opinion, from the raw salads, the raw mucusless salad, and then the steamed mucus-free vegetables. There is an entirely huge gap between raw fruits and raw vegetable levels when you're doing them for a long period of time. But again, I think it's twofold. Some of that is the mentality that has been drilled into the folks that are that are really wanting to be raw, because that's the drum beat. If everybody was saying, instead of using because one thing you can do is every time somebody says raw foods, replace that with mucusless foods. And that's the paradigm shift. Every time somebody says raw foods, replace it with the words mucusless foods. And that is the ultimate paradigm shift that will put you on course for, that will, it's like it'll take you in a different mental space and direction, and you will understand diet in a very different way. So the point is not to obsess over and be fearful of cooked foods. If you're gonna be scared of something, be scared of mucus-forming foods. And you really, I'm just, and I'm not saying be scared, because you shouldn't really be scared of anything. But I'm just saying, if you're gonna obsess over something, then obsess over mucus-forming foods. But then again, you got to be rational, because you can't obsess over it to the point where you're not gonna allow yourself to eat the transitional foods. But if you're eating transitional mucus-free foods, in my opinion, that's, in the long run, that's going to serve you better than overeating a bunch of mucus-forming foods that are raw.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, like, let's say a person's at the fruit level for a few days, and a craving comes up for, let's say a craving comes up for some kind of mucus-forming food. What would be the best way to handle that, as far as like in with your own personal insight, how do you respond to that type of thing, in the best way possible?
You're saying when, so say that again, when somebody,
So like let's say you're on fruit for a few days or whatever, it's nothing too extreme and you're kind of craving some mucus, um, but not too much is going on. It's not like crazy symptoms. What's some of the best systematic ways to respond to that? If you're already doing the enemas, you're already doing that, but there's a lingering craving.
well, I mean, you just, if it just depends on what type of craving it is, and because there's always a tool there, or there should always be a tool in your toolbox to satiate that craving with something that is more rational than something else, or more rational than that actual craving. So for me, I always need to crave something worse than what I kind of allow myself to eat. Once you start getting into that mucus forming level, say for instance, if I'm craving some cooked mucus-free vegetables, then maybe I'll just eat a raw salad and stay mucusless and raw. If I'm craving some beans, then maybe I won't eat the mucus, I won't eat the beans, but I cook up some vegetables and eat some cooked vegetables. If I'm craving something like some processed vegan foods or something like that, which is rare, but if find myself craving something like that, then maybe I deal with the beans.
Hmm.
Uh, so I always try to be a step behind it. Like I said in the other video, if for some reason I was craving dairy or meat or something, then I'm gonna go grab an avocado. So you can see how low that is on my list of things to grab. But
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
that's
that makes sense. Yeah.
so there's always
Yeah.
something, and sometimes if you just need to just slow down the elimination, ground yourself. The thing that I think is hard for people is feeling good and feeling like you're supposed to feel on the fruit levels starts to become addicting.
Hmm.
That in itself becomes sort of this new addiction where and the thing is in your head, okay, well, I'm supposed to feel this good. I'm a human, and if humans are fruit eaters or we're mucusless beings and we run on air, I mean, you start sort of experiencing that. So now you think that is your that you should be able to just go back to that now that you've realized it, now that you've woken
Hmm.
up. Then you just like, oh, okay, well, if that's the deal, then that's the deal. But again, that's not the deal, because we're filthy. We have generations and generations upon generations of wrong eating habits that we have to pay reparations for, and they are expensive reparations, and there's no need to pay them in a couple months. We're gonna
Hmm.
let's take some years, let's take some generations, because we gotta be way broader in our scope of thought. We can't be thinking, where people are like, well, I can do it. I can be on mucuses in 2 years, or I can do this in a couple months, or 10 years. I can't believe you still be eating that in 10 years. It's like, look, trying to clean myself up, permanently change my transition. Then
Hmm.
one day, let me have a child. Way down the road, when I really get myself clean, let's talk about maybe a child, and then let's raise that child mucusless, and then maybe when that child, after it's cleansed itself for 50 years, that child can have a child. Now we're talking about people coming out the womb that can exist on nothing but fruit,
Hmm.
period. Now, 2 generations, 3 generations, I don't know how many generations, but we can theorize about that. But instead of being so obsessed with trying to like feel like I got to run a marathon and get to these levels and stuff. I'm like, let me make permanent changes. Let me permanently reconstruct my bloodstream. Let me allow these weaknesses to come forth so that I can repair them. I can, just put it out all out on the table. And we go spend a lot of time in the operating room with Mother Nature,
Mm.
and let my life revolve around trying to get myself together and understand that that's the level that I'm at, and that's the level that most people are at in humanity. Because when people eat the mucus forming foods, you suppress the elimination, you suppress your body's ability to actually tell you about these weaknesses. But that's why people don't really like to go too far down the mucus free path, because your weaknesses say hello all the time. And until you deal with them and you get deep enough and you're able to really take it to that level where you can eliminate those and repair and regenerate those weaknesses, sometimes it's not fun, going down that. And so people, and like I say in a couple of my writings, we have to have a balance of intuition and intellect. And we have to understand that right now our intellect is being sullied by addiction and constipation. Yet it's not all wrong. So there's certain aspects of so we have to use our intellect to sort of discern and analyze what's a rational craving that I'm having, or intuition. What's a
Mm.
false one?
Mm.
False or negative, or one that's going to take me down that other path. Because there's a lot of weird, weird things that you feel like you might want to do, that intellectually is crazy. It's just based on stimulation and addiction, yet you feel like doing it. You want to do it. We were talking about. I'm going to be posting up a blog post soon about smoking weed, and kind of overcoming the addiction of smoking weed with the Mucusless Diet Healing System. And there's a lot of people intellectually that know that smoking anything, whether it's cigarettes, weed, whatever it is, intellectually, you might know that that's not good and that you want to get over it. But what but on the other hand, you're having this craving for it. So what is that? Is that intuition or is that addiction? What's the difference
Mm.
between intuition and addiction? That is what one of the things that you become very intimate with when you explore yourself through the mucusless diet, because things are gonna come up that, like, basically your addictions are constantly trying to play with your mind to make you think like, well, maybe there's a reason that I'm craving this thing,
Mm.
and I know it's
Right, right.
maybe not real rational, but when you get to a point like where I got, and this for me was liberating, because instead of trying, when I eat poorly, when I get back into some mucus or whatever, instead of trying to rationalize it based on, well, maybe I needed that, or maybe some nutrition or something like that, rather than do that, just say I just had a relapse. I'm an addict. I'm addicted to mucus forming foods.
Mm.
Yeah, I've been working on it for years.
Right, right,
But
right.
look at how many years, and people say, when they uh, go to Alcoholics Anonymous, or they're one of those kind of addiction therapy support groups, there's folks there that have been there for 20, 30 years, and what do they still do? They get up and they say, I'm an alcoholic, and I've
Right,
been
right.
clean for 30 years. Is,
Right, right, right. That's, man,
and,
that's the realest thing you could ever do. I got so much respect for somebody like that, because they're keeping that recognition like, hey, this thing is real, and um, it's interesting because we know that that's where the protein theory came from. That's where the nutrition theory came from, was people dealing with obstruction uh, and running away from withdrawal, because, the first time somebody smokes a cigarette, like, they don't like it almost universally. First time somebody drinks some coffee, they don't like it. First time they have some alcohol, they don't like it. And, so you have to be trained through obstruction to actually want something that you don't need. And in the long run, we're talking about children can be born, like, it can get so bad that a child can get born where they don't even realize that they don't like the cigarette the first time. That's a terrible state, where you could actually smoke a cigarette and by the second one you think you like it. Whereas, maybe 10 generations back, it might have took 3 years to acclimate to
Yeah, yeah,
a
something
poison
like
like
that.
that,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Exactly. And so, you hit the nail on the head when you said, the mucusless diet is all about acclimating uh, to what you are addicted to and really trying to get off of it. And, I can't think of any better definition of like self-knowledge or self-realization than dealing with some of these things, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's it, man. I mean, that is the path. That is what we're trying to do.
Right,
And
right.
and to me, it's just important to come to the realization and be able to look yourself in the mirror and be real. Because there's a real process of learning to love yourself and really have like a real honest unconditional love for yourself, so that and that allows you to be hard on yourself, that allows you to push
Mm,
yourself. Because what a lot of people I find do is, because they're trying to get validation from people outside of them, people in the group. I see this a lot in the raw foods communities and stuff. People want to, part of their support system is, it's almost ingrained that you're almost, it's almost like you're relying on other people for that inspiration, and for, patting you on the back, as opposed to you pat yourself on the back, or to scold you and reprimand you when
mm,
you do something that is considered to be wrong by the community standards, as opposed to you being able to do that for yourself, and you understand those things. The mucusless diet up to this point has been more about the individual's journey, and the individual do that, does all that. You're not always relying on the community and always relying on somebody else to be there, kind of watching every step you take and monitoring you and all that kind of stuff. The community's great, and that's been kind of my life's work and mission up to this point now with the Mucusless Diet, is to try to grow the community and the consciousness, and allow for more of a support system for people that really need that. But still, that support system within this community should serve to allow people to generate that level of consciousness and self-awareness, and love for oneself, that unconditional love for oneself. You can't have unconditional love for humanity if you don't love yourself.
mm,
It doesn't work. And I've met a lot of people that are held back on the diet because they're trying to love everything but themselves. They're trying to love their children and family members and friends and all this kind of stuff, but they actually have self-hatred that, but by their act of trying to love everybody else, and feeling like they need acceptance from everybody else, actually keeps their mind off of their own self-hatred, because that's something so painful for a lot of them. They don't know how to confront it and don't know how to deal with it. And so it becomes easier to be into other people because it's still a love vibration. And so even, it's kind of like you can get wrapped up in that love vibration and ignore these problems that you have with yourself. When you look in the mirror and you don't really, you really don't like what you see. And there's a lot of people, and we were talking about the marijuana and the weed and stuff. There's a lot of people that medicate themselves based on that very emotional principle of, you know, love thyself. That don't they don't know thyself. Love. Knowing is loving. Know thyself. Uh, they don't deal with that. And what ends up happening is they're looking at themselves in the mirror, and here's smoking or taking these pills or whatever. And as soon as they get a little bit of that stimulation in their system, then the world looks better. They look better. Like, hey, cool. Now they're stimulated, and all right, thumbs up there, buddy. All righty. I mean, and it's just so fake. Just the entire, and I've been in a position where a lot of people kind of confide in me, and even before I was really like helping people with the diet, it was kind of like that. It's something about me. People in a personal setting, people would kind of feel comfortable telling me, more realness, kind of expressing themselves and what they're really going through, and sort of getting rid of that facade of, just, yeah, everything is great and la 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 la, and then and then like those kind of people, and then when they get away from the crowds and outside the eye, they're like, that the depression comes in, and I think, I mean, in the extreme example of the the tragic story of like a Robin Williams, and he had his physiological issues, and that's a whole other piece. But I mean, but that kind of thing where the depression and the and just the, these imbalances and all these things, but as a spiritual foundation of that, there's a real lack of love for oneself, and just talking about it isn't necessarily going to help everybody, because that becomes the work. And what I've seen that the mucusless diet does is it forces you to deal with yourself in a way that nothing else does. So if you don't, you're going to get to know you, and you better learn to like you, like they used to say in elementary school, and they put you in a pair with somebody, and it's like, I don't really like them. Can I have another pair? Like, nope, you're stuck with this person. You better learn to live with them, and you better do a good job with them, because your grade is dependent on it. So it's like that with yourself. You better get real intimate, and you better fall in love with yourself. And obviously this is coming from a whole different level of consciousness. We're not talking about that from a egotistical standpoint. That throws people off, because people think, well, that's pridefulness and self-love, and I'm being more spiritual by hating myself. I'm a sinner. I am filthy, and I'm nasty and stupid. And it's like that doesn't help anybody. I mean, you can only talk like that to yourself after you have unconditional love for yourself, because then that it's not that it's not that serious, not that real. Like I was telling you before,
Right.
Like if I share my internal dialogue that I tell to myself sometimes, it bothers people, because then they project themselves onto me, and they're kind of like, and you're like, oh, you're kind of hard on yourself, aren't you? But they don't understand. It's kind of like if you see two people that grew up together, and it seems like they're fighting all the time, but it's actually just expressions of love. Yeah, it's kind of like that kind of thing, right? Some people have that kind of relationship with themselves. There ain't no hatred, no nothing. It's just sometimes my internal dialogue will be harsh to it'll be harsh to myself, but that's just how I operate, how I think, in terms of kind of keeping the motivation going to do different things. Never think that there's definitely a self-monitoring in terms of you can't, there's no reason to to think that you've made it, or that you're on this high level and all this kind of stuff. It's like you know where you are, and you know that there's certain things that you have to offer that's world class, that'll stand the test of time, and that is at the top. But then there's other stuff you got to work on that's not that. So what some people try to do is they try to like focus on that world class part, and then let that just go out there, just ride around in those juices for a while, But my thing is, you share the world class part if it, 'cause it helps people and it makes you feel good, and there's that whole process. But then you got to be working on yourself, like, to get to those next levels. You can't take a break.
Yeah.
And just
right, exactly. Yeah, it's like
satisfied. And
like
that's
what
that.
I found. Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, what I found with myself, man, is really the further along you get in, whatever kind of self-development you have or whatever, the further along you get, it just gets realer. It's not like you ever get to a spot where you don't get to a spot where it's like, oh, I'm perfect now or whatever. It's like the stuff that gets revealed, the work that you're doing just gets realer. You know what I mean? And it's just like with the Mucusless diet, or with my practice of meditation or whatever. And meditation is a good example for me, just because I've done it for many more years than I've done the Mucusless diet transition. And it's, when I first started that practice, something that I might have shared and talked about how it helped me. But now I'm at the part where it's like, it's just so real, like I don't even really advocate for nobody to get into it almost. It's like, and that's how I feel with the Mucusless diet, is it's like, if your karma brings you here, then great, and let's work on this thing together. But if your karma didn't bring you here, you don't belong here. But but anybody who's interested, their karma is bringing them. But you know what I'm saying? It's just, it gets so real.
Yeah,
it just gets so real that the further along you get, the more you want to just shut up and do this work. Like, all right, I'm just gonna lay down and try to deal with myself now.
Yeah. I mean, that it's almost like that. Finding your audience and the target market. What you're talking about is not that you don't share this, it's that you're not gonna, like I say at different times, I don't go on a meat eating Facebook group and start sort of just saying a bunch of stuff about mucus-free foods. Say, hey, you guys shouldn't be like, that's just stupid. Though that is not a place for you, unless you have a specific sort of mission, and your mission is sort of like a PETA type of mission,
right.
kind of get in folks' face and do that. And there's some enforcers out there that's their mission, and if that's their mission, they know that's why they're there.
Right.
Most of us, it's not really what we, it's not really necessarily our mission. Or
right.
we might go through a phase of that, but then, it's like life is long, so you go through a phase of something. It's like kind of like a job. I mean, I almost look at just activism like that. It's that activism to me is like the way some people look at the military, where like in the government, everybody should do something to serve their country. I mean, that's like the way a lot of people think about society. And I think serving the society as being an activist, challenging unfair and oppressive laws and systems, to me, that is some of the best service to actually develop and change a society in a necessary manner. But we can get into that with the Mucusless diet. You can go a couple years and you're compelled to serve. And so now, you're going out, you're handing out leaflets and, buying people. I probably, before I got into this whole internet thing, I mean, I probably bought 100 or more books just
Mm.
at the corner store, Mucusless Diet books, and just gave them to people for free.
Mm.
Brother Air has probably bought and given out thousands of them over the past 40 years. So we're kind of, and we have these periods where we're compelled to get out here and put this information out here for people to take it or leave it. And so the inspiration is a real interesting part. But then there's some times where and that it's time for you to take a seat, unplug from all that. Your service is over, it's peacetime, and you go and you chill, and you fast and you eliminate, and so there's an
Mm.
element to that. There's some things
Right,
to
right.
think about there.
It's like some transitional levels and everything where, because things have to be done, you know what I mean? Like we have to reach some of these folks who might be ready to come on over, you know what I mean? But they're just trashing themselves, and there has to be somebody who goes out and says, "You don't have to live like that. Come on over here," and
Yeah, it's
uh,
it's almost, yeah. It's
so
like there
somebody
always has
has
to
to
be
do
somebody
something,
doing it.
and it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I'll put in my years, you know what I mean, and uh, then I'll let somebody else do it, and I'll play the next role, you know what I mean? Because like when somebody comes into the fold, there has to be somebody there to take them on that next journey, you know what I mean? And so it's interesting, and touching on touching on how we deal with ourselves. That's an interesting topic because with me, it's like I've experienced lots of times where um, I might have been talking about like my struggle with beans or my struggle with avocados or these different struggles, and most people in society can't relate to that. Um,
Right.
so I've seen the effect on family members or friends uh, where it's just like they can't relate at all to that kind of consciousness, and it's like there's a mix between I'm kind of intrigued in what you're talking about, and at the same time it's like you seem like you're being hard on yourself, and uh, I mean there's people literally who will not hang around me anymore just because they've witnessed some of my own self-talk, like what you were saying. I just talked
Right,
about
right, right.
my transition, and it completely like separated us in life. You know what I mean? Because they're like, I can't handle that kind of consciousness. Like I can't be aware, and that's an interesting piece. Is with the mucusless diet, half of this thing is just knowing the principles of an object. You know what I mean? Like we're not
Mhm.
saying never have a glass of wine or whatever somebody might like. But we're saying, in a sense, the way that we talk is like understand what is happening rationally. Don't just think, oh, this is great, this is fine. Dr. Oz told me to. Don't go down that road. It's like with your regular child mind, the mind that you knew when you were 2 years old, it knew what was right. It's like, give me an orange, don't give me that living chicken. I don't want to kill it and eat it. You know what I mean? And it's just like, so so many people don't want to think like that. It's like, fine, have the beans, have the chicken, you know what I mean? But know the principles of chicken breaks down into pus, and the best way to respond to that is like throw some salad in, do some things. Like, because I've done that before where it's like a family member might be talking about food and stuff, and oh, white meat is better than this meat, or something like that, and I'll say something rational like, hey, I just suggest, anytime you're having a piece of meat, like have a very large salad with it or something. And you throw that in there, and it's just like the cog that throws in the system is really strange, you know what I mean? And it's just so rational and simplistic, and it's just really interesting,
Yeah,
so
yeah. It makes way too much sense. I mean, you're not allowed to make that kind of sense in a
right.
in a pus and mucus room. That is not
Yeah.
gonna be tolerated. You will you will be castigated, and you might be banished from the tribe.
Right.
You know what that is.
No, that's real. That's real. Sometimes being banished from the tribe is like the best thing you can do,
Right.
and
Yeah, blessing in
like,
disguise, right?
yeah, that's almost, we could almost theorize that the reason why people become like these ultra militant vegans is almost like push me away. Like, I don't want to be around that anymore. Just let me go. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I
You
mean,
know,
yeah, I'm sure there's maybe a little unconscious whatever,
unconscious stuff, it's just like I
especially
want to
in the
separate
beginning.
myself because theoretically we could do this whole thing almost silently, but I've almost never seen that happen. Is the minute this
Well, you
knowledge hits you, you can't.
right.
It's not easy. You know what I mean? To uh, to suppress yourself in that way, to just never, like. Here's an interesting thing that I've gone through is I've realized that I can't talk about fruit the same way my family talks about Thanksgiving dinner. Um, I can't, there's been times, there's actually a family joke, because there was a time early in my transition where I had two watermelons in my bedroom, uh, that I was just like, I just bought them and put them to the side, because they don't fit in the kitchen or whatever, so I just put them to the side. And uh, my family was talking about, I think it was actually around Thanksgiving, and my family was talking about the good dinner they were planning and stuff. And
Mm.
I said something like, "Yeah, I got two watermelons right now." Like I was excited about it, and that became like a family joke. And like I just like it's just like one of my family members kind of imitates me sometimes and about that, and
Well, I had did
so I
something
just
like that at
yeah
well, my version. I mean, I have a lot of those stories, but the one that came to
yeah
mind was years ago at my brother's wedding. And I was in the wedding party, and this was just I was just into the diet just a couple years or or less even. And in fact, it might have just been about a year or less, and I'd already lost a lot of the weight, but I was still, I could still dabble in some nonsense. But for the wedding part, I I think I just brought fruit. I think I had some oranges or something. So everybody,
yeah
and I got it there. And since I'm in the wedding party, like I'm sitting up front, where it's all this sitting up front kind of thing. And and so I take out these oranges, and everybody else is eating their salads, eating in there, and and like a million times you get told, well, there's probably some vegetables here. There, maybe they can make something vegetarian, or
right right
are you okay? And I was like, look, I got my own stuff, and so I'm sitting there,
yeah
sucking on some oranges, and everybody's eating all this stuff, but but it's just, it just makes people so uncomfortable because it's
it
like,
does right
how far outside the box can you get? I mean, that's just because it's like the left hook that nobody expected, that nobody knows about, nobody understands. So there's no
right
frame of reference. They just don't. They have no clue what you're doing. Like why? Why? I mean, that's all they can say is
yeah
why.
right and the interesting thing about it is, of all the things that you thought you could do that would really throw that cog in the system, just from the education that a person has when they're growing up, I would have never thought that it would be eating fruit that threw off a situation that much. Like if you go out to a restaurant with your family and you order a bowl of fruit for dinner, like that messes people up so much that it's like,
And let me
you know what I
tell you, because
mean? It's
the
like it's
last
just a
couple of
bowl of
times,
fruit. Like,
but you want to mess them up, we'll do what I did, which was not just a bowl of fruit, but the
yeah,
last several times that I ever ate out before I just stopped eating in restaurants altogether,
yeah,
uh, I ordered a cup of lemons.
Mm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
remember my friends. We was at this place. It was like it had this big like organ, pipe organ, one of those places, and they got like a
Yeah.
organist that plays, and and they bring whatever kind of food, and they got had like pizza and all this kind of stuff. And when when the woman came and I took my order, I just said, and I just do it like I don't even do a big deal about it. I just kept a straight face, and I'm just like, I'll just take a bowl of lemons. Just that'll be fine. And I just act like it's normal, and then it's like
Yeah.
atomic bombs. What? Was that all you want? You just want lemons and blah, blah. I was like, oh yeah, I'm fasting right now, but I can suck on some lemons and I'll be good. And it messed up my friend's mom. She's like, what is going on? And I mean,
Yeah.
there's no other way to really just upset a room in a situation. I mean, it's like we say, it's the most revolutionary thing you can do is go down this path and start working on your health, start cleaning yourself up, start transitioning back into where we came from. I mean, it's just because it's diametrically opposed from where everything, where everything is
Mm-hmm.
going, the direction that
Yeah.
everything
Right.
is
Right.
going. So, this
Exactly.
is
And
it.
exactly. And the definition of revolution is like a fundamental change to a system. You know what I mean? And a lot of people don't really understand how fundamental food is in the system of our lives. And that's one of the things that makes the education process of the mucusless diet a little bit interesting is uh, just we don't really understand that food is so essential and fundamental. And so when you start changing your food, you really are doing a revolution that is it's interesting because it's not a revolution necessarily against the political system or against the economic system. It has those branches, but the true revolution of changing your diet is actually to the direct traditional system that you live in. It's a revolution within your own family, within your own community. It's not like I'm advocating everything that my community does and I'm picketing against the government. You're actually picketing against your own household. You know what I mean? So that's yeah. The word
Yeah,
revolution is right. You know.
yeah. It's the ultimate, in revolution because and it's like non-stimulant revolution because a lot of
Mm,
the revolution that we see that's there's armed revolts and murders and mayhem and
mm-hmm.
all that kind of stuff
Yeah.
that's based purely on stimulant because if
Mm-hmm.
you take pus and mucus out of those people's diets and their stomachs, you're not going to have this kind of looting and running around and all that kind of stuff. You're going to have a very different kind of revolution. I mean, it's like, Gandhi is known for fasting, but he really didn't know how to fast well and
Mm,
properly because he broke fasts with buttermilk and stuff, and so he didn't.
mm-hmm.
That wasn't something that he didn't necessarily have that fast, just the mechanics of how to properly fast together, but he, but just that power of fasting just really, really could shift and change. And people thought he was like about to die or whatever. But I mean, but we don't even have a clue of the power of fasting and the power of these fruit levels and what it does vibrationally to the universe. Changing the earth. I mean, everybody talks about that. They want to change the world and change the earth, and
Mm,
we
right.
need not look any further than our eating utensil, our hand
Mm,
or fork, a knife, or chopsticks, or whatever it is that you use. We don't really have to look further than that. If you want to change the world in the most profound manner possible, then change what you put in your mouth and see what happens, because everything else follows. Everything else follows that if you let it. If you let it, everything else sort of just falls in line, and you will be inspired to do the things that will then generate other types of change. So then you might be inspired to get involved in a political process for a particular type of legislation or change that's going to help you be able to live your lifestyle better. Uh,
Mm.
so the reasons that you do things are, is very, very different. It's very much, instead of trying to be about serving a group just because you want to be a part of a group and be a part of a gang. Now you have a real vested interest in, this is what I want to do. I'm living this lifestyle. I want this to be more comfortable. I want to be in an environment uh, where people know what I'm doing. They don't have to be doing it, but it's nice to have people know what you're doing and respect it, so that it's you don't get as many crazy questions and all this kind of stuff. I mean, I've seen a sea change over the past even 5 years
Mm.
with the elevation of veganism. And once you get guys like Bill Clinton and Mike Tyson and the list, I guess Beyonce now is just trying to do something vegan, some kind of vegan thing. Once you start getting that type of like plant-based level stuff, I mean, that's all you had to say is like, well, I practice a Mucusless diet. It's the original vegan diet. I'm done. Like, I only had you, because people know, they already know
Right,
a little
right.
bit. And if
Yeah.
you don't feel like explaining it, then you just tell them, just read the book. And that was part of my mission, was to get enough information out there, so you don't, if you don't feel like explaining something, then just refer somebody to the websites or the book or whatever it is, to say, all right, look, just if you're interested in this Mucusless diet piece, I can give you a summary, but you're really going to want to read the book, and you're going to want to,
Hmm.
check out some of these posts or whatever. I mean, because at the end of the day, that's all we can really do. I mean,
Yeah.
we live our lives, and we can turn people on to the information if the circumstances present themselves, and that's it. So I've made it a point to, when possible, I will expose people to the information. But like in the early days, I would stand and talk with people for an hour or two
Yeah.
hours trying to convince them of something, that they whatever. And then now, and that wasn't a waste of time, because I learned how to talk about the diet. I learned how to sort of, the logic of, the dialectical process and the logic of discussing it and all that kind of stuff, how to sort of sell it to people and frame it. So I learned a lot from that. But later on, it just became about, okay, the information is out there. There's people that are doing this that can answer your questions. So now now it's on you. The burden is on you. Investigate, research, read up, and then get in the game if you want to decide what path you want. And like we say, they're the two main people that end up being interested in the Mucusless diet are either chronically ill people that have been diagnosed with something crazy, or they got something that medical establishment don't have no pills for, can't cure you, whatever, and you start looking with an open mind that you might not have had otherwise, and you come across Mucusless diet, you come across the Dr. Morrises of the world, and that kind of thing, and you get hip, before you know it, now you're on a transition. And the other people that get into the diet are the people that just want to be a part of the highest level thing that they can find. And they look at the Mucusless diet. They see Eric talking about their body's an air gas engine, and that we really should be fruit eaters, and raw mucuslessness. And I mean, you just see talking about the highest level things, and nobody else is coming anywhere near that. Then you start to wonder to yourself, well, what's the actual potential of this path? How far can this diet be taken? And then there you go. Now once you get in the transition, you got your foot in the door and it's on. But and then now there's more people that are just interested. I mean, I get a lot of people on the blog that do a search in Google for mucus forming food list, and they'll find, I think my list is maybe number one or something up on that page. So I get a lot of traffic from that. And but that's as deep as a lot of people have went, was checking out, like, well, what foods are mucus forming, not mucus forming. And so a lot of them just assume that everything on that list is forbidden foods, but so they never really studied. They never read the book. They're just exposed for the first time. That's what happens a lot, because people are looking and they're like, oh, I can't eat any of this. And, and there's no nuance there. But it's interesting. I mean, this is a real revolution, but it's the ultimate revolution of self. Because again, this comes down to you. This is about you being real with yourself, being pushed to new levels, emotionally, spiritually, physiologically, all of the above. And it's on you to learn those things. I mean, there's not one figure that is like a figurehead that everybody plugs into to get whatever, that whole guru model and that kind of thing. It's like the relationship that we have in this community is based on people doing the work. It's not based on a belief system. It's not based on everybody believes and ascribes to a set of of like rules and that kind of thing. You can practice the Mucusless diet and not believe every theory that Eric talked about in the book. I don't believe everything Eric said. I have my my disagreements here and there with things that he recommended and said. Everybody does. Like I said, you don't have to believe every little thing he said to practice the principles of the Mucusless diet, because that stands alone. The principles of the Mucusless diet will sort of lead you to realizing some of the things that Eric was talking about. So you're not required to read the book and sort of everything be this revelation right off the bat. It's kind of like you can read it, you can have your mind blown a little bit and be like, dang, I never thought of it like that. But get into the transition, get into the principles, and let that be your guide, to the higher levels of thought, because then you'll actually start transmitting some of that level of consciousness, and it will come from you without having memorized it in a book and regurgitated it. Now you're actually channeling that level, and that's that's just a different experience for a lot of people.
Yeah, that's a great point, and so yeah, man, I'm just, I'm inspired all the time to keep practicing and getting myself together, man, because it feels so good, when you start seeing the little, and we've been talking a lot lately about, some other methods that I can apply, like you mentioned, the Sedona method and some things that you've found useful, and it's like cleaning myself up makes all those things better, and gives me the opportunity to make a life that's really chaos free. And I've been enjoying that process because in the beginning, in your first year, I just started my third year really, so in my first year, my second year, there was a lot of chaos, but I weathered the storm. And nowadays, man, it's just like I have all the opportunity in the world to really create a life that is chaos free, brings me peace, gives me a chance to get some wisdom and some maturity. And I'm really starting to love that opportunity. And so I would encourage anybody to, yeah, it's not going to be easy to start cleaning yourself up, but when you start getting situated with the system and it just becomes your normal lifestyle, so many other opportunities come into play, you know. Like you've told me before, like food is not a major factor in your life. Like, and I'd say the same thing. Like, even though we talk about the mucusless diet, we're really talking about a self-healing system. You know, we're not up there obsessing about diet, you know, but in your first year, in your second year, maybe your third year, and maybe at periods in your transition at any time, you are going to have to like deal with food and get maybe a little bit serious about it. But most of the time, it's like, hey, I got this thing down now. Let me see what else I can get together in my life, you know. So
Right, well,
that's
right,
where I'm
right.
at, man.
You know, and that's where you really you, instead of being stimulated on a lot of things that are more, you know, the base level kind of stuff, a lot of the pop cultural things, you know, a lot of stuff. You
Yeah.
look at like pop music, you look at that stuff. It's oftentimes dealing with the animal side, you know, kind of the carnal side, and so, you know,
Mhm.
sex and relate, you know, and sort of the you know, man and woman thing, and um,
Yeah, sex,
the
aggression,
aggression,
intoxication. Uh,
intoxication, the mainstream visions of love, and you know, and all that
yeah,
kind of stuff.
right.
Just,
Yep, true.
you know, and I agree with Eric on all those subjects of stimulation. There's not a lot of true
Mm.
love vibrations going on. There's a lot of
Uh,
stimulation, and you know, and that's
true.
something that we really will figure, you know, just investigate that and go down that road to find, because like a lot of those things that you're talking about, they're not virtues for most people in this society.
Mm.
Peace, who nobody
Mm.
talks about that. Like nobody wants, not really. You might go to church and that's
Not
part of
really,
some
right,
prayers or
right.
something, you know, let there be
Yeah.
peace on earth. People just use that word like they say, you know, hello, you know, or good
Hmm.
afternoon. I mean, it's just a word, but you know, yeah, but it's not something that people are really into and concerned about it and want, because I didn't want it when I was
Mm.
before I got onto the diet, before I got serious about the diet in the years prior to that. I was into the stimulation, you know, so I was, you know, going to the parties and going, let me get high, let me get drunk, let me do this, where's the girls at? Where's this? What's going on? You know, it was just, you know, I didn't really want peace, because peace would have been like shutting all that down, and like, wow, I don't want that anymore. I don't, 'cause all of that's
Mm.
based on chaos. You know,
Yeah.
half the time we go to club and we get into pushing matches and fights with people, and cops would be coming and glass was breaking, and you know, it was insane. We're looking back on it, but
Yeah.
that was just what we did. That was the life. You know, it's like people that go and get in bar fights all the time, the Wild West. You know, it was just part of going out, was being rowdy,
Hmm.
you know, and you thought that was fun. You know, there ain't no peace in, what's peaceful about picking a fight with people. You know, but what stimulates you
Yeah.
to want to do that? Uh, you know, you gotta have like, you gotta have some serious stimulation up in you to want to, lead that type of real stimulated kind of existence. You know, and that's where people have trouble, I think, sometimes even understanding our vibe, in terms, like a lot of mucusless diet people, because we're very chill and kind of, and just sort of lay back in our manner, yet we'll be very intense in terms of our thought process, and uh,
Mm.
and our actions, and what we do in terms of practicing, because there's ways to practice hardcore, and there's ways to slow it down and that kind of thing. So some of us are kind of hardcore with our practice, but in terms of just our overall character and manner is very chill. It's like, because I'm not interested in the rah rah siskumbah kind of thing, and because it becomes funny. Like like if I were to switch over and start acting like that, he'd be like, "Hey guys, all right, we're gonna do Mucusless Diet, and today I'm gonna tell you what's going on. Mucusless Diet is so awesome. Check this out. All right, check this out. So I got some water here, right? And I'm gonna drink this water. It's gonna be the best water in the world. And here we go." It takes a hell of a lot of stimulation to keep that going. That ain't the vibe for me, It's like,
right.
that's some other thing, But what I tell people is, if you want to understand a little bit of where I'm coming from, go watch interviews with jazz musicians. Go watch like Miles Davis interviews, and John Coltrane, and just these musicians from the 60s and 40s and 50s, and it's that I relate to that vibe. A lot of people, they relate to that more stimulated thing, and that's why a lot of the guys like the people that, some of the people that they follow with the 80-10 tenors and that kind of thing is more stimulated.
Definitely.
Kind of vibration, and that's what a lot of people are attracted to. This is a little too chill. They don't want to. I don't know about that, but if I'm like, all right, guys, we're gonna work out. We're gonna do this, and man, it's gonna be so fun today, man. Check this out. I'm gonna run up to the top of this mountain here. I'm gonna come back down, and then I'm gonna drink a glass of water, and I'm gonna go over there, and it's gonna be just this incredible time, and I want you to enjoy it with me. It's like, that's, I don't know. That's what, but the thing is people become less stimulated, then they become more attracted to the less stimulated vibration, and
right,
because it is
exactly.
it is that.
I mean, it's interesting, man, because it's like, what is stimulation? It's like we talk about that a lot, and it's like that stimulation is not necessarily humanity or humanistic, and that's what I think people get confused about. Is like, if you ride your bike for 10 miles a day or whatever, or 100 miles a day, like, that's cool, you know what I mean? All right, but you're just moving your legs, but if you can really like awaken some things, not to get too out there and stuff, but I'm like, if you can awaken some things, like take your intelligence somewhere, it's hard to describe, you know what I mean? But there's something completely different. Like if I'm laying down and I'm fasting, it's not that nothing's getting done. I'm just not running around, you know what I mean? But something is happening that's real profound, and to me, it's like, that is what we're talking about when we're talking about like the opposite of stimulation. Is there's something going on, but it's definitely not. It's much more humanistic to me.
Right. I mean, it's real energy. I mean, it's energetic.
It is, yeah. It's like
energy cellular level, and in a revolution of thought process experience. There's no. I like the definition of chaos that I heard on there's this, it's kind of this generalized philosophy that comes out of Kabbalah, but they said that chaos, the definition of chaos is unnecessary process. So anything that is unnecessary creates chaos. And so my life has been about the removal of unnecessary process. And so why do something if you don't really need to do it? If you don't really need to do it, it doesn't, to me, it doesn't make sense. So when I see a lot of just a lot of the stimulant based kind of like the athletics or some of these things, sometimes that comes across. It's one thing, and it kind of gets back to what you were saying, those are two different experiences. If you got someone that's riding a bike for 10 miles or 50 miles and they're they're not really doing anything with their consciousness. It's just all about their body. It's just all body, and they're not even really doing anything with their mind. They're just kind of whatever. Then that's just based on stimulation. If you got somebody that where everything in their life is like a meditation, now you're riding your bike and you could be on a real high
Yeah,
level
right.
physically, but mentally your thing is you're doing out of body travels while you're riding your bike. I mean, you're visiting the purple atmosphere planet that I like. I mean, you're on
Yeah.
this whole other level. Same thing with even sometimes I mean it's like the antithesis of and very stimulant driven, but I still will check out some of the like the best boxers. I like some of those documentaries because there's a
Okay, yeah.
there's actually there's like a spiritual mentality that's up under there, and so it's this, it's more like that Hinduism kind of Krishna concept of, sometimes you got to fight your family, in war, sometimes it's just out of
Ah,
karma ends up, but there's kind of a virtuousness and an attitude that I can relate to in terms of the winning spirit, which, wanting to be the best, wanting to push things to the highest level, do that kind of thing, and what Brother Air really
right.
did for the practice of the Mucusless diet was bring the good part of the athletic spirit uh, into the practice of the Mucusless diet. So now we're thinking, we have a little bit of that where it's not based on competition and it's not really based on stimulant, but it's based on pushing yourself harder, and going further, not unintelligently, not being extremist, but finding your groove, but then pushing whatever is uncomfortable. Like you push it, you push that little, and things that are uncomfortable sometimes might be dealing with emotional issues with a family member, or uh, what the thing that's uncomfortable might not always be diet, but
Hmm.
if you get in the habit of sort of confronting everything that you see is not righteous in your realm, and and sort of being open to deal with it, then now that's the sort of the attitude of an athlete that I see. When if something isn't right, then they're going to keep on working on it. If my jump shot isn't perfect, what they say, Michael Jordan, he however many hundreds of baskets he used
Yeah.
to do to practice.
Yep.
And it's like I say with the Mucusless diet, why is it that in diet, it's almost like diet realm is one of the only places where people think that they can just start this thing and that they can get to the level of a Michael Jordan without practicing.
Mm.
It doesn't make sense in basketball or sports. These guys have been practicing since they were children for hours and hours. And every once in a while you might have somebody that has some natural talent, but most of the natural talent people that become professionals, they incorporate their natural talent with a great practice ethic and a
Yeah.
great attitude, of a champion. And there it is. But why can't, it's like, okay, I talk a lot about the artist side, but it's okay, well, let's talk about the athletic mentality that could be applied to the Mucusless diet. Where is it? Where is that understanding that you got to practice this thing, and you gotta crawl before you can walk. People want to
Right.
want to
Right.
be, it's like people want to be born, go through the rebirth, and then be running the next day. Like you haven't even stood up yet. You haven't even crawled yet. This
Yeah.
isn't that type of race. This has nothing to do with time. This has to do with
Hmm.
permanent
Yep.
transformation of your entire being, inside and out, physical, spiritual, mental, emotional, everything. I mean, we talk about the physiological side because that's kind of that's the doorknob that we're dealing with. That's
Yep.
the key in the doorknob. But when you get outside of that, it gets fairly abstract, and it gets kind of, each person's experience and all that kind of stuff. And basically what we can talk about is uh, the preparations for some of what's going to come down the pike, or what could come down the pike in terms of experiences, but understanding that that it's coming. That that those experiences, those transformations. A lot of people, anytime I talk to somebody and they kind of have that attitude where they're not prepared to have drastic changes happen in their life, because a lot of people just want one thing. They might want something cosmetic. Well, I just want to lose weight. I don't want to, I don't think I want to do necessarily what you're doing or do this or whatever. I just want to lose a little weight. It's like, well, then this ain't probably the path, for you, because this ain't that kind of path. I mean, you can use it, like you can use because the tools can be used in any way you want, so you can use the tools to lose weight, the tools of the transition, or you can use the tools for this, but ultimately you're going to find that there's a brick wall with your name on it when you try to do it like that, because this really is a holistic system that forces that really has you dealing with not just the physical, but the spiritual and the emotional and all of that. And we're talking about it now. Sometimes people say, well, we don't talk about those things enough, and it's not that we don't. It's just that you're limited in terms of what can really be articulated effectively to a wider public. I mean, we talk about these things all the time, in small groups of people that are like dedicated practitioners of Mucusless diet. There's really no boundaries and things that we don't talk about, but there is some limitations that we put on discussions that go public, because we're not trying to be here and just be these kind of like, wow, these guys are deep, and oh, that was some real far out stuff. Like, that doesn't help anybody. And so the information that we're putting out about transition diet, if people don't learn nothing else from me than transition diet, then I will be happy, because I feel like I don't even have another message that I need to talk about right now, because like I say, I mean, I would love to be able to talk about more, aggressive protocols, and like I said, I can probably blow your mind with some of the aggressive things that I've done or that I've seen Brother Air do, or that recommendations that I could give you that will, that are incredibly aggressive in ways that you didn't really think about. But that's not really my purpose, I don't think, right now. It's not about that. It's really about getting people hip to the transition, because once you sort of let go and you allow the transition to be what it is, and you stop trying to fight against it, then that's the sea change, and everything shifts. And then now you're looking at life from a different perspective, and the potentials are different, and you're not in that that emergency state all the time. That emergence. I gotta stay. I gotta stay raw. I gotta stay. The fruits and this and that. I mean, like, one of the biggest things that people don't talk about much, that Eric really emphasized, was the the stewed or cooked fruits, because that's a level in itself. Dealing with baked apples and baked
banana.
There you go. That's what I was gonna say. Baked banana and applesauce. That you make yourself, that you cook down or whatever. I mean, there's a lot of
that
levels.
Stuff is tasty, man. You want to talk about a dessert? Like,
yeah.
cooked fruit is tasty, man.
I mean, it's where dessert started. I mean, that's the whole, that's the whole thing, where you
literally,
I mean, apple pie and cherry pies and that whole vibe. I mean, it's basically when you know certain items when you cook them they get a little bit sweeter. And so you take some of these things and you stew them the right way and they get a little sweeter. And at the same time you know if you they eliminate really well. And it's a great spot again to just have it's like there's these little spaces that people ignore, you know, these little glimmers of like you know, just like don't disregard this, check this level out, you know, experience that level, see for yourself what is that stewed fruit level like, what does that do physiologically, why did Eric talk about it the way he did, you know, so check that out, check out the you know the cooked vegetable level with the you know the raw salads, you know, you check out the juice fasting and the lemon juice fasting. And I mean you over time you can allow yourself to check out these levels and see what they do and why they were discussed, because there's a reason for everything that's in the book. There's a reason for it to be there, even if it's something, there's like 2 or 3 things that I don't advocate, you know, because I think we're in a different level now. You know, it's a couple things that Eric or Fred Hirsch, I'm not sure who, but there's a couple items that said that you know that in the book it says could be used for the transition, and it could be, and there are some people that do use those items, but you know I think that we can skip over, you know, we can skip over those things, but either way, it's you know, I mean you can get in arguments or whatever about those kind of little things, but overall it's just, you know, transition, and through the transition, all these other things we're talking about, this you know, the spiritual changes, the you know, the getting into days of where you're eating fruit and you don't even realize that you know you're not even missing vegetables, you didn't even realize like, oh, the whole day went by and I didn't even get hungry. I didn't eat that much. You know, like that is a result of having transitioned properly. That's not something you try to do. Like I say, on my longer fast that I've done, like my I did 3 6-month longs, juice fast and all that kind of stuff. Again, I don't tell people to do that. Disclaimer, I don't promote that kind of thing. But I did it, but I didn't try to do it. I didn't sit down one day like, you know what? I'm going to fast for this long because I'm cool. Like, no, that wasn't like that wasn't it. I was literally a day at a time. It was just a day after day after day after day. It was just like, man, I feel good today. Drink some more juice. Like, okay, I feel good. You know, I'm still feeling good. And like, oh, well, I'm a little tired today. Let me just do an enema and lay down. Still not hungry, but I'm gonna just go through this elimination and lay down. You know, next day, okay, I'm back. You know, drink some juice. You know, and before you know it, it's like a time machine, because time goes by so quick. I mean, it's like, especially those fasting levels, and that gets into the relativity of time and how stuff shifts. I mean, it's like physiologically everything in your realm has slowed way down. It's like if things are going, just like a train down the track, and you're on the one side, it's kind of like everybody else kept going. Everybody else, their aging process kept raging on, their desires, all that kind of stuff kept raging on, and your thing just kind of slowed down and settled down and chilled. And your concept of time is like, 6 months goes by, and that felt like a month of what a mucus 6 months felt like. A fasting 6 months feels like a month or two. I mean, it doesn't feel like, mucus, I think, really affects the brain and the concept of time, and just food in general. I mean, it really makes time do something else. So it's kind of like as you're slowing down, it's like time goes by faster. So I don't know, like, and this would get into where it's real hard to even express this kind of experience, but it's like you're slowing down because everything about your thing just slowed down. The aging process is slowing down. It's like, all these things, but that doesn't mean time slows down. So so it's almost like the time you slow down and time speeds up, if that makes any sense. Because it's like you're slowing down. It's like that that the tortoise and the hare kind of thing. I mean, it really is like you're just on this other level, being this, just happy to be this tortoise. Things are going, you just do things when you feel like it, and that kind of thing, and everything else is whizzing around. And and I mean, I really experienced that stuff with like the all these things. If you watch any kind of news or politics or the economy, and it's always like some other stimulation, and it makes it's like ants that you threw something down, like an ant colony, and they all start running around like this, and it's like and you're just sort of not even moving, and you're just watching, like, dang, why is everybody's running around like crazy? What's wrong with them? And they don't even notice you because they're too busy worrying about, oh, the terrorists are coming, and this is that, and we're gonna die, and we're breathing this, and there's global warming, and this, and Obama, and this, and that. It's like just total chaos, total fear all the time, and then and total eating and aging fast, and breathing fast all the time, like you say, a dog breathing all breathing fast, and you can connect that in, animals that, and if you watch that, look at their heart beating, and look at how they have what they call dog years. They don't live that long. They're running their thing out. It's kind of like if you take an engine and you turbocharge it, or you put some kind of stuff in it that makes it like, man, it makes it run off fast, it makes it be loud, but it also destroys it, and you can't use it that long. And there's people that do that. If you see them down there, got their engines all vroom vroom doing this kind of thing, and and they're got their wheels turning and all this kind of stuff, and it's like, well, you can do that for a while, but then you've ruined your car. If you take care of your car and maintain your car, then you can keep that car for years and years and years, and you're not gonna wear it out. But this mucus and pus thing, it's like, we're gonna wear this out, and so so time. I guess that's what we were talking about, is the way in which your perception of time just it changes in ways that you can't even really imagine unless you really do get into like a longer fast or something like that. I mean, it's remarkable what it's remarkable, that particular experience, and kind of hard to explain, as I'm finding out right now. But yeah, man. So yeah, you got any final thoughts, final questions, anything before
Man,
we wrap it up?
my final thoughts, man, is I would like to see more people just claim the title of Mucusless Diet Practitioner. Um, it's like you don't have to be very far into this thing. You don't have to be perfect or nothing. Just let it be known, I'm a Mucusless Diet Practitioner. Uh, I would just like to see that more. That's my final thought.
Yeah, that would be, that would be great, man. Because
Yeah, because I mean, I've seen, I've personally probably seen hundreds of people that have uh, taken part in this information in some way, and I know that over the years since Arid's time, there's been hundreds of thousands. Um, but the number of people who are just sharing this information and saying, yeah, I practice Arnold Ehret's Mucusless Diet Healing System, that is limited, if you ask me. And so I think that would be the most profound thing, is just more people, because then we could actually deal with the system more instead of like people really bouncing between different systems.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, and that's been the long-term thing, is it's hard
Hmm.
because people people want community. People still want some of
Yeah.
the stuff we talked about way earlier. Just they want to have something to plug into other people, and this is the pioneering stages of what we're dealing with. The Mucusless diet. Up to this point, the majority of the people that really practice the Mucusless diet were the kind of people that were, very much, solitary people. The kind of people that, like, I don't have to get the love and acceptance of the people around me to do what I'm doing. Uh, and so it's a bit more, kind of hardcore of an attitude of, like, I just don't care, and that's why when
Mm.
people, when I talk about some of what I did when I was in the early days, how hardcore I was about not letting past friends mess with me at all emotionally. But I was able to let go of those kind of attachments, and a lot of people aren't, and I understand that, and that's why I don't really, like, I tell people to transition even on that. I mean, there's stuff that I where that, there will be
Yeah.
things that I didn't necessarily even really transition off of, but I will advise others to apply the transition, because the transition methodology is good for, for everything. If you,
Yeah.
when there's something like that where you can make it, and you can sort of, like, just like, you need to do it like this, and you just go for it, then you'll feel it, and you'll know you need to do that. But basically, you guys, like, the brother Air, and everybody else that was really into the diet at different times. I mean, it's very much an island kind of lifestyle, in terms of, island, meaning, you're kind of on your own. There's a few people here and there, but you're just kind of out there, and you can't be depending on other people for your good vibrations, for your whatever. There's a lot of people do that. They kind of feed off of everybody else, and rely on that as inspiration. And you could have a little
Mm.
bit of that, but not a lot of that, up to this point. So now, hopefully, now that there's more people that understand this thing, there's more people that are kind of getting on board, really seeing what's so special about what Eric's message has to offer, that's totally different from all these other things out there. They're starting to, have a bit more courage in doing something like that, because that takes courage. Anytime
Yeah,
you
I guess it does. Yeah.
you self identify with something, then, that's a big deal. That the creation of one's identity, that's a very interesting social phenomenon. The way in which we create our own visions of ourself. How do we see ourself? And, like I said, with like the title of Raw Foodist, there is a thriving community that people can
Yeah.
plug into, and people
Right.
are attracted to some of the personalities that are associated with it, and the ideals of it, and they get sucked into that, and that's cool. That's what happens, with these different things. Um, Veganism, or, part of this. It's we're, this community and this kind of thing. And, with like I said, with the Mucusless diet, up to this point, now it's starting to happen. The community's starting to happen. Like my man,
Hmm. Yeah.
Tobin. I'm a post of his, on the YouTube channel. I'm a post of his. He did this little rap,
Oh,
little
yeah.
rap about
Nice.
the
Yeah.
Mucusless diet. And I get excited about that kind of stuff, because that's the real cultural creation. Now
Mm.
you're getting beyond people talking about something, and now art is being created
Mm.
to express that which can't be expressed, uh, in just words, emotions, and that cultural foundation. And any movement that really was successful in terms of, a revolutionary movement or anything like that, there was always art involved. It was
Yeah.
always an art
Right.
with, it was music, protest songs, revolutionary. art that changed the way people listened to music or changed the way that people thought about something.
Yeah,
And
right,
it
right.
was normally connected. It was connected in with what was going on as a lifestyle changed, the art elevated and changed, and as people thought with new ways of thinking, then that was reflected in the art. So the poetry, that the plays, the content that people were talking about, everything shifted and everything changed. And so that to me is when I know that things are really changing permanently, because again it gets back, my thing is about permanent change. I'm not interested in something that's short term, that's just a couple days or a couple months or years or whatever. I'm interested in permanent changes. And once a person has been totally permanently changed along this path or by this information, then it's it's a special thing, and it's something that can't be taken away, even if that person ends up going back to eating some mucus or something, um, and kind of leaves the lifestyle behind. They will always respect to a certain level this this piece, and it will be
Yeah,
something that
right, right.
that they. And then in later years, they sometimes will be like, man, I wish I would have took it more seriously. I wish I would have
Uh,
gotten
yeah.
deeper into it, and that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
man, because this is the simplest. It's just not to cut you off, man. It's the simplest truth. It's like we're trying to get our health together, or it's not always framing it as getting it together, but it's just like we're trying to better our health. And what's wrong with that? You know what I mean? It's like you got loved ones and friends and stuff, and we all are growing older. We all, people are actually not that comfortable with talking about their aging process. Like, hey,
Hmm.
I'm feeling a little bit weaker today or something, and it's like a couple years down the line, your family, your loved ones will definitely be like, hey, I wish I took my health more serious, and this is a chance for us to set an example of, take your health serious. The better your health is, the better your life's going to be. You get to really enjoy it.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's like
yeah.
simple logic. You set an example, and you said it earlier about this thing really changes some things in the world, and I've seen that. I've changed just by practicing it. I've changed some dynamics in my family. I've when I became vegan years ago, we started having vegan Thanksgivings. So my family, like, we usually don't have meat at Thanksgiving, and they're real hooked on the dairy. My family, so they actually tend to not eat meat, but they eat the dairy.
Hmm.
Um, but so it's a slow paradigm shift, and I've seen my family kind of contemplating their own health and stuff just because of what I'm doing. So
Right, right.
uh, I appreciate that. And the other thing is that they've actually seen my emotions and my thoughts and stuff get healthier as well. Um, if you were to push some people in my community to talk about me, I think that they would say, yeah, I've seen the changes that this thing has had in Tony, and um, he seems to be more thoughtful and more focused on like a kind of positive production in his life. And you know what I mean? Like, I would never want to be egotistical, but I'm saying if there was more people like me, like let's say all my neighbors were living a health-centered life, uh, we could really come together and do some things. So uh,
Yeah, I
the
mean that's
opportunity to
right.
clean up a community is there, and it's got to start with somebody who sets that seed.
And it becomes the only way that it can happen. I mean, that's what you
Yeah.
sort of see. I mean, you realize that any movement that doesn't have the physiological piece at its core is destined to fail. It's destined to
Hmm.
become corrupt. So I don't care
Hmm.
if you have whatever kind of revolutions where a lot of, socialist revolutions,
Yeah,
this or
right.
that or whatever. Um,
The greatest
but
theories.
yeah, yeah. I mean, what ends up happening is it's not about changing the system and then really changing yourself and changing the system. A lot of people just want their turn to oppress. They want their turn to be
Mm,
president. They want their
mm.
turn to be on the council of elders or the steering committee. They just want their turn. And I've seen that, and unfortunately, you see that in every revolution, everything. Yeah, I mean, you could see positive changes for depending on what the revolution was. You might see positive changes for a while, where certain groups of people become less oppressed and might have a chance to have a bit more say in their thing. But then something else shifts. The people that took power, they become incredibly corrupted, and so
Mm,
and,
right.
and it's not that power corrupts. It's that a corrupted physiology, a corrupted spirit, is bound to be corrupted in a
Uh,
position of power. I mean
that's a good
that's
point right there, man. That's definitely a good point. It's we never want to talk about ourselves. So it's like power corrupts or money corrupts or all these things corrupt. And it's like, well, what's really going on inside the individual that allows somebody to seek out more than they need? You know, Eric's whole theory about what a leader is the leader is the one who can do it the least.
mm,
So the person who doesn't want greed, like they cannot be greedy, um, that's a person who is able to have power, to have money, to have these things, and to not use them wrongly. Um, and any of us in the modern world, or what they call the first world, and different things like that, like we
mhm.
have a certain amount of power that we're born into, a certain amount of money. Even like a homeless person in the U.S. is living off of hundreds of more than a home, like a person with a home in Africa. You know what I mean? Like you could
Right,
have a
right.
home in Africa and live on $1 a day, but have like a hut. You know what I mean? And this is actually how bad it is, man. The average person in Africa lives on $1 a day. The average cow in Europe lives on $2.50 of food a day.
Mm.
Um, so we're talking about a situation where um, somebody has something, but they don't know how to use it. You know what I mean? To create a better world for all of us. Um, so I think that
Well,
fundamentally
and when
the
you but
Mucusless
when you
diet
say
is hitting
somebody,
that.
but that gets real interesting because now you're talking about when you use the word somebody, and what a lot of well-meaning, good-hearted, empathetic people do is they fail to
Mm, mm, mm.
acknowledge and understand, and you know where I'm going with this. They
Yeah,
fail
yeah,
to
yeah.
acknowledge and understand psychopathism, uh, sociopathism, however you slice it, where you have people that have lost their capacity to be empathetic, that have lost their
Mm,
capacity to view other humans as living beings and humans, to that lost their ability to view animals as
yep,
living
true.
beings that deserve a chance to live. And so, as I've
Exactly.
talked about before, and I have a kind of an unreleased video. One of these days, I'm gonna post it up on my on the blog. I think because it's kind of
Mm.
too hot for YouTube kind of video, but um, but I
Oh, I
explore
think I know
that.
which one you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I explore that concept of everybody is psychopathic to a degree.
Mm,
Just by virtue of we live here in this environment, in these societies where mucus and pus is king and queen.
mm,
So we so now it's not a question of are you a psychopath? It's what degree? And because just before I quit eating meat, in order to do that, like in order to know that there was an animal that got killed, and I was ignorant of, sort of like, never having really seen slaughterhouses or anything. I was ignorant to a certain degree, but there was a level of psychopathism that's involved in still knowing that there's an animal being killed, and like I just don't care. I'm just on it, like, because
Mm.
you're not viewing that as a living being. You view that as, just something that you were told you need to consume, and that is natural to eat and whatever. And so, but what happens is, as you practice the mucusless diet longer and longer, you become supremely empathetic, more and
Yeah.
more
Right.
empathetic to, every little living being. It's the real, universal love, as people like to throw that concept around, but you really experience that, where you develop an understanding that all living beings are just trying to do the best that they can do with the circumstances that they found themselves in. And and you get this understanding, even with the psychopaths. Like, I understand why they're doing that. I understand they can go out there and serial rapists, serial killers. The folks I talk about in the video with the lynch mobs, the kind of horrors that happened in the
Yep.
slavery and the Holocaust.
Yep.
How can these things happen? How can
Mm.
uh, how can groups of human beings do this to other groups of human beings? And when we
Right.
can get
Right.
into, you can take entire courses on different areas of scholarship and studies that will give you answers. You can go to economics. You can go to food shortages and stuff, where they say that all poverty and all starvation is man-made. I mean, you can study social science and anthropology. You can study all of that, and you'll get somewhat different answers in each discipline. But the one answer you won't get is that the eating of pus and mucus is the foundation all of that, of all of that chaos, of all
Mm.
of that unnecessary uh,
Right. 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 Yeah, because
process.
I mean, yeah, exactly. Because it's like, if we understand that pus and mucus is the most powerful drug you could take, then let's put it in the context of a society that wakes up and everybody from 3-year-old child to 80-year-old person does some cocaine before they go out in the world. Then out in the world they do a little bit of cocaine. Then they do cocaine together around 4 p.m. Then they come home, watch some TV, and shove some cocaine up their nose.
Right.
And that goes on for generations and generations. Um, what does that lead to? You know what I mean? And we know what happens when somebody has an addiction. It's the addict over everything. It's the addiction over literally everything, and that's what we're seeing in the world. Is it's me and mine over everything. Uh, you know what I mean? And that's the psychopathism, because coming back to the animal thing, like Brother Airhead said something to me one time on the phone. I was dealing with a situation with my dog, because that's another thing. Getting into the mucusless diet has actually transitioned me out of owning animals, and that was something that was very close to my heart. Like I that was always the number one factor in my life, was like owning animals and being connected to animals, loving like raising dogs and stuff. And um, I was going through a situation where I was letting my dog go, and that was hard for me. You know what I mean? But it was like I had to do it, because karma was happening, physiology was happening. Anyway, just in the middle of a conversation, he had said, well, if you look at your dog's eye, what do you see? And I said, I didn't really know what he was getting at, you know what I mean? And he was like, you see a human looking back at you. I was like, man, that's so right. And that's what I had been feeling actually when I was going through that elimination was every day it was depressing me to see myself owning an animal. And I'm still going through that transition now. I own a pet snake that I've had for 10 years. And I've been looking for a home for that snake for about a year and a half to 2 years now. And it really beats me up just to see that this snake can't roam, can't hunt when it wants to. It eats when I feed it. It can't mate. It has no life. It lives in a large enough cage that I could buy, but it has no life. And it's the same with a dog. It's just trapped in an apartment. It can't mate. It's neutered by law. The Humane Society neuters the animals before you get them. There's just so many things that I was like, this is a form of slavery. I'm actually owning a human, and I'm feeding it what I choose to feed it. So to connect that all in, man, it's like mucus and pus developed that. I mean, only us, only we could see how shoving the cocaine in your face could do that.
I mean, we're sitting around. Like, you see that gray wolf over there that's just running around with his family? Go grab one of those. Bring two of those gray wolves over here, and we'll spend the next 20,000 years transforming this thing into a Shih Tzu and a poodle.
Right. Yeah, they were definitely bred. That's not a natural species. And what's interesting about that, man, is sometimes if you look at wild animals today, think about a human actually raising that animal 2 million years ago and then it escaping. There's birds, for example, that people don't really know why. Like a good example, there's a parrot in the Amazon. It's a beautiful parrot. Like you could see somebody owning this bird. Beautiful parrot. But its body is like really, really big and its wings are really small, and like it can't get up on trees and stuff like that. But instead of, like, you might say with penguins, you might say that's more natural and it's working for them because they swim with their wings. But this parrot is literally, scientists don't know what happened to it because it literally is disadvantaged. Like it can't get around. It has, like, its food is up in a tree. It's not like a penguin where it gets its food naturally. Like its food is up in a tree, and sometimes it takes like 8 hours for it to climb up a tree with its beak because its wings don't work. And it will actually fall back down and have to try again. And I was looking at that one time and I was like, man, somebody could have bred this bird millions of years ago and then it got away. You know what I mean? So it's it's just a lot of weird things have happened,
I mean, there's just so much out there. I mean, in nature, I was watching these. I mean, the insect kingdom. I was watching all these documentaries on. I mean, that's a trip. Insect kingdom. When you start getting down into the oceans and stuff, and all the. Well, that's actually when I got kind of interested in some of those ocean documentaries, because I started seeing stuff that looked like that come out of my body, like in some of that mucus and stuff. I'm like, dang, this is like a little jellyfish thing here. What is going on?
Right.
Stuff
exactly.
that look like that.
Right.
Exactly,
man.
So there's
people are really into the parasite analysis right now, where it's like, the parasites are doing these things to human mind and stuff. And I'm saying, yeah, that's true, but the mucus and pus is the bed for the parasite to live in. So think about what's the effect of the mucus and pus,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's exactly, because you gotta, if you want to host a lot of that waste, then you just, the formula to that is just, make sure you eat you a bunch of meat and get ready, and you can have your own little, you can have your pet worms in your intestines.
Yeah, right, right.
Just let me have, it'd be like, okay, this is Sandy. This is Let me introduce you to my intestinal worms. This is Sandy over here. This is Dan. This is Pookie. I mean, it's silly out here. I mean, we got it. We just have a lot of work to do, and we got a lot
That
of
is,
transitioning to do. We got a lot of waking up to do to really get a sense of who we are and what we're really here to do. And
yeah.
I mean, all these messages are all over the place. I mean, look at and sometimes they don't even have to necessarily make sense for it to make a lot of sense. You look at, like, just in the English language, it's kind of like, and I bet there's those kind of connections in all languages where you start putting things together and you have the consciousness and you reading beyond the lines. You see EAT and Earth and
Mm,
creature EAT.
mm,
Creation EAT. I mean, you're seeing this EAT all over the place. Eat, and
mm,
then you can just it gives you a place philosophically to take your mind and kind of think of things differently. This is the eat planet. This is the eating planet.
mm,
Some people say, well, it's a warring planet. No, I say no, it's an eating planet, because war comes out of the eating that was
mm.
done.
Yeah,
And
right.
especially the eating, the unnatural eating, and and I mean, it takes it, and again, that's that transition, and look, and how long it took to get us to where we are, and why we shouldn't expect to just turn things over overnight. I mean, if you go back to those, say, go back whenever you had the last time you had a fruitarian in your bloodline, however many, hundreds of thousands or more years ago that was, you get back to a time when uh, that fruitarian might have, maybe their transition into a mucus forming food item was they just started eating something that wasn't ripe enough.
Mm,
For whatever reason, it's like looking at these bananas, like, this banana really isn't ripe, but let me eat it anyway. You get to, and then just that. That's just that one, like eating one. You go back far enough, and you find one human that ate a banana that wasn't ripe enough, or some other fruit that wasn't really ripe enough, and that one thing could cause this entire reality that we're living in now. One
mm,
mistake, one flaw can send things on this spiral downward, uh,
mm-hmm.
to, in epic proportions. And and yet there was still a transition. It took one bite of of a food that really wasn't fit for the human body, and so that person might have started craving that now,
Yep,
so now
yep,
they're,
right.
so they might not have even ate it that much more in their life, but they had a child, and now that
Yep,
child has a taste. We're like, man, I really like unripe bananas. Let me go.
yep.
Like, I don't even know why nobody else is eating them, but I want them. And they start eating unripe, and then people are like, why are you eating unripe bananas? Cause they don't, it's just, it happens so gradually, and
Yeah,
before you know it, the entire society's eating unripe bananas. And if you can eat an unripe banana, then you can eat you can go eat some vegetables. You can definitely eat
yep,
some mucusless vegetables, and then you can graduate to starchy vegetables. And then you eat starchy vegetables for long enough, then you can work your way down into getting into some animal milks. You can get you some goat milk, whatever. And as soon as you into that milks and stuff, and you getting in your nuts and seeds and stuff. It don't take long before you can get down into the meat. But the thing is,
Yeah.
physiologically, that transition from a starchy banana to meat was way, way longer than meat to where we are now, because humans just haven't
Mm.
really eaten meat that long like that. And so that's why you can get off of a pus addiction or a meat addiction, in 6 months. Took me 6 months. Some people don't even have to transition off of meat. They just off of it. And that's
Yeah.
fine. That's great. I love that. And then the reason we can do that is because we haven't eaten meat that long as humans. But mucus has, as long as wrong eating has been around, mucus eating has been around. So that's going to take infinitely longer to deal with that addiction, that the cleansing of the body of the mucus is gonna, that's a real chore. Meat is like nothing. Meat is like getting off of meat is kind of like kindergarten. I mean, that's just in comparison to how hard it is to really truly get off of mucus for good. Meat is, that's not even really a discussion. The real respect and understanding of what we got to do is really going to be, really focused at that mucus, because that mucus is the thing that is going to be in your life a while, as you're going to be dealing with and trying to figure
Hmm.
out, like, all right, let's find ways. And and then to me, that's where the transition is just fun, because I don't have to be stressed
Right.
out about it. I don't have to be like, I know what's going to happen when I eat some crap that I shouldn't be eating, and I just kind
Right.
of just roll with the punches, but you always have the system that you can rely on and kind of, step back to. And that's where we're at, but it's just
Yeah.
transition, learn from, this get a whole other piece, but, learn from babies.
Mm. Right. Right. Exactly.
Everybody there's nobody that doesn't transition. There's just very
Right.
few that are conscious of their transition. I mean, that's the difference. The baby. I mean, you could study a baby and look at the baby's transition in the solid food. As the baby comes out, first thing it's doing is breathing. Then it's a liquid area. It deals with liquid for a period of time.
Hmm.
Mother's milk, or if they make some kind of concoction or something, some juices or whatever.
Hmm.
But it's going to be on that. It has to be on that liquid level for a period of time to transition into not cooked foods, but solid food. Uh, and then once you get to that solid food, you got to be transitioned into being able to eat more food and bigger food and more. So you have to be transitioned into fast food. Slow. You can't just, like, you're not born and then somebody's giving you a Big Mac. You
Yeah.
actually have to transition and get yourself filthy
Right.
enough to be able to eat something like that.
Oh yeah,
And
man.
so
Right.
we're still not focused on transition enough when we're not taking all of that into account, thinking that we can just give everything up and change, and just change everything on a dime and be like, okay,
Right.
I'm all whatever tomorrow, or I'm all mucusless, or I'm all fruit, and I'm all whatever. It's like, your heart is in the right place in terms of wanting to change and wanting to get to those higher levels, but we just got to be more realistic about what it takes and where we really are physiologically.
Yeah. And to add on to that, some people say about addictions and stuff that the first time you take it, you actually stunt your emotional growth.
Mm.
Um, and we could add on like emotional, intellectual, personal growth. Um, so when you start like the kind of stuff, I mean, let's just be honest, the kind of stuff that we see that I know I go through and I know other people go through, when you start cleaning yourself up, the kind of emotional stuff that you go through, like look at the age you were when you first started taking that Big Mac. You know, I
Right,
know
right.
by the time I was 5, I know I had some McDonald's. Um, so it's like
Right.
when I start cleaning myself up, I go back that far to restart again. And you know, I've made a fool of myself so many times, uh, not in a bad way really, but just you know, getting overly emotional with family and stuff. And they're like, "What are you going through?" You know what I mean? And uh, but it's like, and I've actually accepted, like, hey, let me just let this stuff out. Let me just be emotional with my family. Let me bring up like if it's midnight and I get a thought about something that happened in our family, you know, I'll bring it up, and they're like, "Why do you have to bring this up?" You know what I mean? But uh, actually, last time I sat my family down, and I was fasting, sat my family down, and went through some things. Like, look, there's some problems here in our family line that have not been addressed for a long time.
Right.
Uh, and I talked to my mom about like, look how your mom raised you. Look at her emotional state. And then look at how you raised us. Like she knows we love like how she raised us, but there was also some issues there. Um, and then between me and my sister, I was like, there's some issues between us that if we really get real with ourselves, it might be good to go talk to a counselor. It might be it might be really helpful for us, like, because in the future our parents are going to be gone, and we're going to be our family. Me and my sister, we're going to be the lineage of this family, and um, so you know, I did some things, and there was a lot of weird emotions on their side, kind of a tenseness, and then in the morning, uh, they both told me like, you know, you were saying some things and it was tough, but there was some very important like aha moments. Like you brought up some things that we needed to hear, and you like beat down the door so that you could get us to understand some of these things. And um, you know, so these are some of the things that I go through, you know, as I transition, and just thinking about that emotional piece and stuff. That's kind of an insight that I just had actually. Like, look at the age that I have to go back to restart my transition. You know,
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
I'm going back to when I got off my mother's milk. Thankfully, I was breastfed. You know what I mean? So got off my mother's milk. Maybe had a pear or some fruit for a few days before I had my first dairy or whatever. And
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
where I'm going back, you know what I mean? To
Right.
restart, you know what I mean? So you better pull
Yeah.
out the books. You better find some techniques to help it out. You know what I mean?
And it only gets deeper from there. You know, that's the thing. I
Right,
mean, it only
right.
gets deeper from there, and you can keep on going back because now you start dealing with your grandfather. You know
Mm.
what was he eating when he was born, and his
Oh, right, right.
thing. You know, and you're dealing with your great grandfather and your grandmother, and so you are as I say, the janitor of your bloodline.
Mm.
You know, that responsibility has fallen to you this time, and hit like the party is over. Like brother Air said that, and this earth thing, like the party is over. They like that, we're cleaning things up. We're the janitors. So, like the party's over. It's like the people that are still partying, they're like those drunk people that are still at the party, and
Yeah,
the party is over, the music is being turned off, and it's like you're trying to get them to leave, and they're
right.
just too drunk and happy, like, dude, I love you so much. This party is so awesome. Oh my God, this is so good. I love you. I just want to dance some more. Just, it's like, we're sitting here with like a broom trying to like, will you please
Right.
leave? We're trying to clean up. Party is over. Do you understand? Last call was 5 hours ago. Time to leave. Go home, please. What I mean? That's basically where we're at now. It's just,
Right.
just
Yeah, right.
like
And you get
time to
different
clean up.
personalities, man. Like one person might help the drunk person out. Another person might just throw him out the window, like, man, get out of here, like,
Right, yeah, yeah. It's like,
you
man, just
out of here,
out of
man.
here. Yeah, yeah,
So
it's
it takes
right,
all
right.
of us to. It takes a nation of us to
Oh,
clean up a nation. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah. I mean, that's yeah, for real. That's some truth. That's some truth right there. So that's what this is about. Like I said, it is about the work and getting into this thing, really seeing if it is what it claims to be. But you don't have to be
Yeah,
extremist about it. You don't have to uh, push yourself too hard, too far in one direction. It's the art of rationality. Really, learning what's rational for you, and being able to stick to that and just roll, and let the transformation happen, because it will. If you're brave enough and you ready for this path, then the transformations will come inside and out. And
it's true,
so,
man.
so yeah, so I think we're gonna wrap this up, man. It's been a good little live broadcast here, and I see we have a handful of viewers. I appreciate you guys for tuning in to this. We just kind of just happened on the fly. It was like, well, let me try this thing and see how this works, and as I might be trying to do some more kind of meetup kind of things or webinar kind of things in the near future, and so I'm checking out different platforms, and so yeah, just thought I would check this out, because I didn't had never really done this before with the live and all that kind of stuff. So I'm glad that got a chance to do this. Want to thank Tony for always a great conversation. Just high level, dealing with the Mucusless Diet Healing System, Arnold Ehret, and what it takes to really be successful with this thing long term. And so yeah, you got any parting words to anybody? Any shout outs or anything?
Oh man, just to everybody on the Arnold Ehret forum, uh,
Yeah.
those are my peers. You know what I mean? And I appreciate everybody's posts, and they all inspire me. And let's just keep it up.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. All right. Well, we will talk to you soon. Keep on doing your thing, keep on cleansing, and we will change this world one anima at a time. So all right, y'all. Peace, love, and breath.